that it's going to be unveiling a new SUV next Friday.
And this company is now approaching $130 billion market cap.
And you bought this stock on the open market.
Given yesterday's climb in Rivian's first day of trading, those who took advantage of the company's offer saw big gains.
Of course, one of them is Rivian. That has been the big story of the week, as we were just talking about. This company delaying production, and that seems to be problematic. At the same time, the company is already talking about expanding, maybe looking at a standalone battery factory.
Might as well just keep speeding up. It was fascinating to hear Austin give a little advice to RJ Scaringe, the founder over at Rivian. Also fascinating. Apparently, they may not have talked yet, which is interesting to me. But I'm just looking at the Yahoo Finance platform right now, the Rivian ticker page. I mean, this company is now approaching $130 billion market cap. And I tell you, Julie and Emily, there are people out there that are having visions. This is the next Tesla stock here. Long way to go before Rivian is on par with the Tesla in terms of raw production. But I think that's what a lot of folks are seeing here.
This is going to be another SUV and likely a successor here to the current XPENG SUV G3 and G3i. More than 10,000 vehicles for a back-to-back month here for this latest report.
Certainly to me looks like a helicopter, but maybe perhaps more aggressive in rolling out new models. So I think you're starting to see some separation. Last year, the big story was all these companies are the same, but now starting to get, I think, XPENG taking a little bit of the lead here.
Move this week is the most interesting of all. That, Pete got an allocation in the IPO. You did not.
Well, and you and I talked yesterday about why I couldn't get an allocation because I serve on that public board.
Sure.
An approach that's very similar to Tesla's. They're going to be making their own batteries. Made a very nice move this week. If it goes against me, I only lose the price of the call spread. I'm not going to lose $130 or 20% of $130 if indeed that $26 drop happened.
You talked a little bit about this on the earnings call last night. What are your plans in the truck market and how might they unfold next year?
A huge believer in the autonomous trucking market. I think there's definitely a major opportunity there. And this is something that we've been heavily capitalizing on. We just had a couple of great wins with, two of the top autonomous trucking players, just in this past quarter. So that's only been accelerating for that matter. I think as we face like global supply chain logistics challenges, all the more important. But, compounding on that, we're talking a number of other wins, NVIDIA, Polestar, Webasto and Alpha, and seeing Mobileye launch their car was fantastic too. So there's no shortage of traction. It certainly exceeded our expectation, and that's why we also had raised the guidance for the commercial wins, and everything else has otherwise been in line for meeting our key milestones and meeting or beating all of them that we had outlined on the call.
And Austin, it does look like that the revenue missed by a little bit, but it sounds like from what you're saying that most of that's going to be pushed forward in terms of revenue gains.
For things like financials and revenues and other stuff at this stage, it's more of just about, programs that you're working with today. The serious numbers that you're talking about are after you start scaling up in series production. And that's really the significance of the wins that we've had, is that we're really the first and only company to actually be able to enable autonomous vehicles into series production, enabling that level of capability. And that's part of what we're launching with our start of production before the end of next year.
Rivian following in Robinhood's footsteps, setting aside pre-IPO shares for existing customers. Joining me now is CNBC senior technology reporter Ari Levy. I see you got the business cut back.
Yeah, well, John, what's particularly interesting here is that we've seen this with Airbnb, with Uber, with this company Doximity that is a marketplace for doctors, where they've offered pre-IPO shares, or IPO shares, I should say, to their customers. The difference here with Rivian is there are no actual customers because there's no actual product on the market.
For a two-day total of about 50% from its $78 IPO price. And here to break down the latest moves is Yahoo Finance's auto expert. Raz, thanks for joining us here. What can you tell us here on day two of trading for Rivian? Pretty positive for the investors, it looks like.
No next day hangover here. Usually, right, these big IPOs, you get a next day sell-off. Not today. Yesterday, Rivian hit an $86 billion valuation, popped 50% yesterday. I think this is kind of like sealing the big bet that investors are making on, or putting money to work in that EV wave, right? Number one, we heard them talking about how they wanted to scale up make around 1 million vehicles a year by 2030. So that's positive news. They're looking at a site, I think, right now in Fort Worth, Texas, to build a second plant.
I want to look at the Wi-Fi Interactive here because I have our EV heat map, and there's a tremendous amount of green today. But we take a look at this stock on a year-to-date basis, and you can see still marred in the red here.
That's right, Jared. We'll be reporting that after the bell tonight. And, look, Lordstown is a different story, right? They don't have any vehicles yet built there. They're doing some deals with Foxconn and people like that to get more capacity into their factory. But they're expecting another loss today on zero revenue again. So hopefully the loss won't be as big as the street is expecting. I think it's around an adjusted EPS of negative 56 cents a share. So hopefully they can not lose as much money as Wall Street may expect them to. So that's sort of the trade Lordstown. I'm sort of they're not like Rivian, right? They're far from Rivian right now. They have a new CEO. Hopefully they can turn it around, but they're in some kind of headwinds right now as we approach their earnings date tonight.
In the upper left here, 1.22 billion. Rivian, on the other hand, wow, I think it's 115 billion right now. What a story there. Thanks for joining us, Yahoo Finance's Praz Subramanian.
Anthony, I want to start with Rivian because you actually were the only trading platform to offer Rivian shares to retail investors. Just how big was demand?
There was a lot of demand. It was obviously a very attractive IPO for investors that are looking to invest in innovation and also invest in a new platform for vehicles. On the EV platform, we had about $300 million of demand.
Do you wish it could have gotten more? You got 0.4%. How much did this pay off for SoFi?
Well, the way we think about it is we want to deliver a value proposition for our members. Investing is one of those areas, and having different selection within investing is important, and IPOs, and that's another piece of differentiated selection. So yes, we would love to have more supply. We clearly have the demand for it, and we want to continue to bring the best selection and most unique selection to our members so they can get their money right.
Is this a Tesla 2.0? Founder of DataTrack, Nicholas Colas, who's actually used to be an auto analyst. And what he was noting was Rivian's valuation, and that Rivian's valuation now makes Rivian a real competitor when it comes to Tesla. What he's saying is basically that during IPOs, when you have IPOs, some investors cycle out of some of the older names and go into the newer names. And it's very interesting because Josh Wine from Hennessy Funds had spoken to Yahoo Finance yesterday and was talking about this success from a market's point of view of Tesla, of Rivian. And you would think that with these valuations, you would think that the general, that traditional automakers like GM, like Volkswagen, like Nissan, like they weren't working on electric vehicles, on getting their electric vehicles out, that they wouldn't be working hard at that. Basically saying that when you look at these valuations, look at also at the traditional automakers, and perhaps those are undervalued now.
Yeah, and we also had Elon Musk weighing in on this too, kind of pointing out that, there aren't a lot of, the reason why there's, excitement around the Tesla competitors, because there's not a lot of startups that have been able to do what Tesla's been able to do. And so I guess on Twitter, I don't want to say he was taunting Rivian, but kind of pointing out they still got a long way to go.
Rivian, Tesla just delivered 500,000 vehicles last year, so it still has a long way to go, but certainly that comparison is being made by market watchers.
On all that growth, too, we should point out for Tesla was kind of in a time where they were the only ones with all the pizzazz, shall we say, in the EV space. Now, clearly, a lot of other automakers catching back up.
Elon Musk, he's selling more shares. According to filings today, Reuters is reporting that another block of shares is what he sold, worth about $700 million. The extrapolations for what inflation data and all the other news we've been watching, what that means for rates. And actually, we're seeing not much movement there, 1.55%. Tesla shares continue to be under a little bit of pressure here, down by 1.8%.
People are searching for a cheaper alternative to Tesla, but they also want a more pure play exposure than GM and Ford. I would rather trade the relative valuation. I think Mary Bauer came out yesterday and she made some very, very decent points for the fact that Rivian at $86 billion, should GM be an $86 billion company?
I go back to the same question I've been asking all morning. Is all of this rational in the sense of what the full context of the marketplace for these EVs will be?
All 21 companies in the S&P 500 energy sector get a total valuation somewhere between $1.2 and $1.3 trillion. So that should tell you this is not an EV play so much as it is sort of a pure play on alternative energy in the long run.